But I think that's kind of the challenge, and I guess that's kind of the beauty of Nile. And I'm sure you'll talk about how Nile's done it different, but I guess that's the uniqueness of Nile is that Nile is trying its best to start clean. And by starting clean, that gives you a much more straightforward path to maintaining that agility by maintaining that cleanliness in that back end of how you're supporting it and what everything's built on. Like, I guess that's a correct way, or hopefully it's a correct way to frame it.
Yeah, so that's exactly the way to frame it. And, if you think about it, I'll give you an analogy. I like, talking about, what our customers say when I talk to customers, because they're ultimately the ones that are dealing with this challenge. I was talking to a very large healthcare organization. I'm
Hmm.
here on the West Coast in San Francisco, and it's a healthcare organization that's based out of here. And when we were talking to them, they're still going through this, but they're in a state where not a single IT project can get funded unless automation is a part of it.
Mm.
And by the way, that sounds fair. That sounds like a good approach. But let's break that apart for a second, based on what you just said. If my environment is not clean, if my environment is full of that complexity that I showed on that last slide, right? And any little change in that environment could cause a change in the success of my automation outcomes, then there's a problem, right? And if I think about it, for me to go try to solve these problems with automation, I've got to go hire somebody that knows automation or teach somebody automation. I've got to go buy a solution like Ansible. I've got to come up with the problems that I'm trying to solve. I got to figure out what the data structure looks like and the telemetry coming from all these different solutions and feed it into a common data lake. And then I've got to write some automation to find the needle with inside the stack of needles that'll pinpoint that this is a problem and then write an action against that.
Hmm.
That's all the work that has to be done day one. Then day two, somebody's got to maintain that. Somebody's got to troubleshoot it. Somebody's got to support it. Somebody's got to add to it. And if any of those things in that last slide change, that troubleshooting is going to be problematic. It's
Hmm.
basically, in my words, adding more cost complexity on top of cost complexity and trying to, again, extract the value that somehow aligns to the investment that I'm putting in. To your point, we have to start clean, right? We have to start with more of a deterministic environment instead of all these different snowflakes that are riddled with all this different complexity. Going back to my Amazon example, if you think about what Amazon has done with like an EC2 instance, their IaaS solution, they basically purpose-built a storage and compute stack to deliver predictable outcomes to customer at scale.
Hmm.
It's got all the capabilities that a customer needs. It's got all the performance and the scale and the security and the outcomes that customers expect, but they purpose-built the stack underneath the covers. They don't let customers go in and config the stack. They don't let customers go in and necessarily choose the protocols or the capabilities or the vendor that builds that stack. It's just, here is your storage compute, and I'm going to start from a clean slate and purpose build it so I can deliver those outcomes at scale. But I'm going to give you, the customer, the control you need to be able to do what you want to with this storage compute because it's your storage compute. I don't own the application, you own the application. It's your
Hmm.
business, right? And I give you the visibility you need to be able to support that workload that's running on the top of my storage compute.
Hmm.
That shared responsibility model or that hybrid model, it's what's great about as a service. They built something from the ground up. They didn't take servers and appliances off the shelf or top of rack networking off the shelf from vendor XYZ. They built a purpose-built stack that is deterministic in nature, to use your words, that clean slate, to be able to
Hmm.
deliver those predictable outcomes. That's what we've built from a Nile perspective, right? If we can start with, hey, let's first get rid of the snowflakes, right? I'll give you another analogy. I like analogies. I think it helps paint a picture. But I'm a network engineer by trade. I know how my brain works, and it's a mess. It's if you got in there, it's very confusing and frustrating. But it's the way engineers' brains work. But if I had a room of network engineers, including myself, 100 different network engineers, and I gave them a homework assignment, saying, "Hey, design me a network for this new building, and it's got to satisfy these 10 use cases. Some of them are telephony, some of them are applications, some of them are security, some of them are performance, whatever those use cases are, common use
Hmm.
cases that our customers deal with every day." But I said, you have to fit it into this budget envelope, which is a finite budget envelope because not you can't afford everything. And I
Hmm.
need you to make it simple enough to hand it off to operations so operations can support it. I guarantee you, I would get at least 100 different designs out of that room. I know personally I would put together 5 or 10 different ones, which with a bunch of pros and cons associated with trying to fit something into that budget envelope and a bunch of trade-offs and compromises associated with that, as well as what simplicity versus what complexity can we actually operationalize.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way my mind thinks, it's the way network engineering team thinks. But if it was all based on the same set of use cases, then why does it have to be different? Why does it have to be this architecture versus this architecture versus this architecture? Why does it have to be this protocol versus this protocol versus this protocol, right? If I can satisfy the use cases, if I can bring the sophistication of all that, but make it simple by eliminating the cost, because there is no CapEx in a true as a service model, right? Which means there's no upfront investment. And I can eliminate the operational burden by fundamentally eliminating complexity, then can I deliver a sophisticated network stack to you, right? That gives you what you need and it can keep pace with your business. The only
Mm-hmm.
way to do that is to take those lessons learned from the cloud and build something from the ground up that is natively, that is cloud native, vertically integrated from the cloud all the way down to the on-prem APs and switches, et cetera, to be able to deliver that innovation to you at scale.